So comes the end of the DCEU. So comes the end of 10 years worth of films. And Aquaman 2 is the final entry in this series of films. Ultimately, is it justified to be that final entry? No. I think The Flash was better job done for this, at least introducing the multiverse. Aquaman 2 does none of that. I don't even think deep down inside Aquaman 2 was intended to be the final movie, but it just so happened the way things were done that it is. So what is Aquaman 2 to the grand scheme of the DCEU? Well, it really is a solo movie. But a solo movie that has gone through so many reshoots and I think different directions that one wonders what the original movie was. Let's kind of break this movie down. To begin, I like to start with positives. Patrick Wilson killed it in this movie. I think he's a great actor, and I really hope James Gunn somehow convinces him to come back to be in the whatever version of DC James Gunn is creating. I think he really deserves it. He brought his A game to this. Jason Momoa, he played Aquaman more as a goofy character, which is kind of sad because his whole reason for being Aquaman is to make us, the audience, believe that this guy who talks to fish can be a badass. Not in this movie. This movie, he's more of a comic character, and I understand. Listen, Jason Momoa is a great actor, and I think that is his real personality coming to life on screen. I personally think he's going to make a great Lobo if this is the direction that they're going to go. But as for Aquaman and where his character was by the end of the first movie and what we had seen before, this was such a different direction that really makes me wonder if they just kind of gave Jason Momoa free reins to do what he wants to do. Amber Heard, I can clearly tell, such a pivotal character in the first movie, but her legal troubles kind of made the studio cut around her in this movie, and it really shows because she's very limited in this movie, doesn't really have much to do in this movie, and the whole adventure part aspect of the first movie is kind of given to Patrick Wilson, and Patrick Wilson does a really good job in my opinion. I think that is the highlight of this movie, Patrick Wilson. Now, the story, Black Manta's revenge quest, is kind of sidelined. Black Manta is ultimately possessed, and that's kind of sad to me. I think for where things were heading after the first movie, I was excited to see Black Manta go full on evil, full on desire and darkness. Short of saying we are Venom, Black Manta ultimately becomes a possessed person, and that just really is sad because Black Manta should have been much more himself, and I think even in the beginning part of the movie before the possession, he was doing a great job. I don't understand why the script took him that way. The moral of the movie is environmentalism. Obviously, it's not some grand wrap up to the DCEU. Again, to reiterate, this movie wasn't intended for that. So I am pro environmentalism, and I believe that's a great direction for Aquaman, but I kind of was expecting a little bit more from the story because this is the final DCEU movie. So ultimately, what we're looking at here is a movie that went through reshoots. You can tell some of the CGI is a little bit PS2 level graphics, but some of it is really good. So I'm pretty sure the reshoots really affected the level of quality for CGI compared to the first movie. I also think the direction the DCU changed really affected this movie because Aquaman in the first movie was the king of Atlantis. That's what they were setting up. If you've seen the Snyder Cut and the Nightmare timeline, Arthur Curry's supposed to die to Darkseid. Here, he doesn't want the title of being the king of Atlantis. His character kind of regressed a little bit from where they had left him in the first movie. The thing is, this movie doesn't end with a tribute to the DCU as a whole. This movie just ends. There's no final bow. James Gunn is now going to run things. It is his turn. It is his time to run it. If you go into this movie expecting the finale to be some grand scheme, some grand setup to where James Gunn is going, it's not. This is a cul-de-sac and the road has ended. If you go in with the expectations that this movie is a standalone Aquaman movie, then I think you'll be happier as a viewer, because ultimately that's what it is. You're just getting an Aquaman story. An Aquaman story that ultimately will lead to no other movie, ultimately lead to no other roads or open-ended questions for the viewer to figure out this is the end. As my own personal tribute to DCEU, I have to say this. DCEU started as a deconstruction of our favorite heroes, bringing them to flawed personalities of humanity, but trying to do better. Then with the changes in the leadership, DCEU became more campy and more fun. This Aquaman 2 movie fits less with Aquaman's 1's deconstruction of Aquaman and more the campy side of being Aquaman. Do I recommend my viewers to watch it? If you've been a DCEU fan and you want to finish out the DCEU films, then go for it. If you can wait for it to get on streaming, I would do that. I don't think this movie really tops the first one, and I don't think it's really worth to go watch it out in the theaters. It's a shame how things have ended with the DCU, but I'm really looking forward to, I think, where James Gunn is going to go. If James Gunn really takes his time and doesn't let the studio pressure him and lets the story play out like it should have with the first DCU before they went Batman versus Superman and kind of try to stuff everything, catch up to Marvel, and if they just let James Gunn do his thing, I think we're in for a great ride. Suicide Squad under James Gunn, Peacemaker under James Gunn is great works for the DCU. I think we're in good hands. It's just a shame that this movie suffered because of the changes that were coming. Ultimately, DCU is gone, but Aquaman 2 doesn't deliver that final goodbye. If you really want to see a final goodbye, I think The Flash does a better job. At least introduces the multiverse, and you kind of get the end of where things are going with the multiverse. Will just be in another universe where Superman is rebooted and Batman is rebooted. So, thanks for watching, and look out for more video reviews coming your way.